Good morning, everyone. I'm Carol Fowler, and I am one of the members of the Chats with Champions committee here at Skidompha. And I would like to remind you that this series is a free community offering from your national award-winning Skidompha library. First, kindly turn off all electronic devices. I know there's people reaching for their pockets. The chats succeeding today's will be Thursday, October 29th at 10. Don Perkins has a passion for barns and will present his Barns of Maine program. His book, The Barns of Maine, Our History, Our Story, will be available for purchase. And now I'm delighted to introduce our guest champion, WGME's chief meteorologist, 2012 Giant Pumpkin winner, and this year's 6th place winner, Charlie Lopresti. Charlie makes up the weather part of WGME News, Evening Edition. He's a native New Englander. He grew up enjoying the area's exhilarating, surprising, and sometimes wild weather. And at an early age, he knew his love of storms and weather extremes would lead him to a career in meteorology. He received his degree from Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. After graduation, and this is really important, he went to work atop Mount Washington's the rock pile at its observatory. He had the opportunity to conduct important research on the world's worst weather. For the past decade, he has called Portland home. Charlie has been awarded the AMS Seal of Approval for Quality Television Weather Broadcasts. He has been designated Certified Broadcast Meteorologist.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Meteorologist, yes. I mess it up on a nightly basis.
I told Charlie I wouldn't be able to say it too many times.
Is the mic on?
The Maine?
He's the weather guy.
The weather guy. Yeah, he's a weather guy. The Maine Association of Broadcasters awarded his forecast best weathercast for the past 4 years.
Yes.
In addition, his weathercast was awarded first place by the Maine Associated Press Broadcasters Association. Let's give him a warm welcome.
All right, thank you guys. Can everybody hear me okay? First of all, thank you for inviting me up to Damerscott. I'm always looking for an excuse to come to this area. My wife and I really love this part of the state very, very much. Of course, it's Pumpkin Fest weekend. We're very much involved in growing giant pumpkins. They just dropped a load off our Pinky's plantation this morning before the talk, and of course we'll head to work this afternoon. I always like to stop by Oxbow Brewing my way back too. That's always when you're near Newcastle, you got to stop in there. It's one of my favorites. All right. So when Carol invited me to come up here, she said, "Hey, can you talk a little bit about weather and your pumpkins and growing pumpkins, because obviously it's Pumpkin Fest." So we were sitting around this summer a little bit. My wife and I were sitting on the deck, and usually our conversation revolves around the weather, and then we talk a little bit about the garden and the pumpkins and everything. And she says to me one day, she says, "Do you know anything other than weather or pumpkins?" And I'm really not that cultured in the world as far as outside of gardening and weather. So thank you for inviting me to talk about something I enjoy talking about. And so my wife got a kick out of that. Someone actually wants to hear you talk about weather and pumpkins. Yeah, so it's a pleasure to be here, long story short. So my presentation is going to be a little bit scattered at times, but I intend to talk a little bit about growing pumpkins. The weather involved in that, the unique weather you guys get here in the Damerscott area. It's a really beautiful place on the planet that you folks all live, and if it were up to me, I would love to live in this area, just because of the beauty that it has. If I have enough time, I'm going to talk a little bit, I will talk a little bit about behind the scenes work at a news station, a little bit about the weather we have here in Maine, and if I have enough time, we'll talk a little bit about Mount Washington as well. So yeah, it'll be good. I never intended in getting into broadcast meteorology. Broadcast meteorology is one of those things where I said, I don't know if I'm cut out for talking to the camera or things like that. But I always love weather. They say meteorologists get into weather for one of two reasons. They either love tornadoes or they love winter storms. For me, it was winter storms. I loved winter storms as a little kid. Love snow, still love snow. The ironic thing is, now every time there's a winter storm, I'm stuck in a building forecasting it, and we don't even have windows in our building, so. But we get to play in it still. I do enjoy skiing, snowboarding, whatever else, cross-country skiing, just being outside in winter, so I feel like you kind of have to embrace winter if you can, if you live around here. So that's kind of how it happened for me. So I ended up working in the worst weather in the world up on Mount Washington for about 3 years. And I was dating my wife at the time, and we were considering deciding to settle down and have a family. And she said, it'd probably be good if you're home for dinner. And living on top of a mountain just wasn't conducive to family life. So what do you do with a meteorology degree after that? You either go work at the weather service or you get into broadcast meteorology. So that's kind of how it happened for me. And so far, the area has been very kind to me. It's been a really fun time just to be here in Maine. I spent my early years, up to about high school in southern New England. But I got out of there as soon as I could. We ended up moving to New Hampshire, spent most of my life between New Hampshire and Maine. Lived in Bangor for a few years, worked in Providence for a few years, but today we call Portland home, as Carol mentioned in my bio right there. So we're going to talk a little bit about pumpkins to start us out. Let's see if we can get this thing to work right. Love technology. This is outstanding. I'm going to control this with my iPhone today. Great. So giant pumpkin growing is something that I've always enjoyed, even since I was a little kid. Growing with my dad, now I grow with my kids, and they think it's normal just to grow big pumpkins. No, she grew her first pumpkin this year, and based on its measurements, I taped it and said, you know what, Catherine, I think it's going to be over 600 pounds. Well, we went to the fair at Cumberland Fair, and we weighed it, and it weighed 557 pounds. And she was like a little disappointed. I said, honey, no, this is a great accomplishment. No kids your age have grown pumpkins this big. I'm really proud of you. And she said, I'm going to try harder next year. So that's when I think, okay, this is normal. She thinks this is normal. So that 1,400 pound was our last year's entry, and that was good enough for third prize, which we were very fortunate to get here at Pumpkin Fest. This one was our first real big one I grew, and this one was in 2012, and this one weighed 1,332 pounds. I was fortunate that not too many people entered pumpkins that year, so I lucked out with a first prize win. So that was a special pumpkin for us. And that was the first year, and here's a little secret about growing giant pumpkins. That was the first year I sprayed maple syrup on my pumpkin plants. And you might be thinking, okay, that's kind of crazy, right? But some growers in New Brunswick started spraying maple syrup on their pumpkins. 1 ounce per gallon, you mix it with water, and you spray it on the leaves every 2 days. And I don't know, I've been spraying maple syrup on my pumpkins every year since then. I seem to be doing okay, getting over 1,000 pounds, so I think we're onto something there. Growers in the past have been using molasses, and it's just a different way that the sugars break down within the plant. It gets expensive. Maple syrup, I like it on pancakes better, but I know a guy that has a sugaring house, and they sell, you can get the lower grade for the cooking quality maple syrup that makes it a little more affordable. But I'm getting off topic now. So yeah, this is our big entry that we had back in 2012. This is at the weigh-off. You can clearly see I'm happy. I was not expecting it to weigh that much. It was pouring that year. This was the 1332 with my daughter behind it. A lot of folks will say, how do you grow pumpkins? Well, one of the things we do is we cover them. I like to cover them anyway with a tarp. You can see some of the old greenhouse or hoop house cages that were around. Just covered with a tarp afterwards. I like to keep them dry, and just like anything else, like us, they can get sunburned. So you want to make sure that they stay shaded. Yeah, it's a weird obsession. And I like this picture. This is one of the pretty orange ones we grow. A lot of folks will ask me, how do you get them out of the patch? I built a lifting tripod out of 4x4s, a 16-foot 4x4s. It's kind of like an engine hoist. We have some straps. In this day, I just had a 2,000-pound come along, but I've since switched to a chain falls. It's real easy to do. We can do it by ourselves now, which is a lot of fun. This one was about 600 pounds. But I like the shape, and I think that ended up being a boat one year. So that's how that works. So, a little bit about growing giant pumpkins. I ended up documenting the 2015 season of pumpkin growing. And at work one day, I didn't realize it was April Fool's Day, but this was April 1st. and I was all around, it was a long winter, right? And I was all excited about gardening and everything. So, okay, we're almost there. And I was getting ready to start my seeds in about 2 weeks. So I said, I'm going to go outside and shovel the pumpkin patch off. And my wife, again, probably thought I was a little ridiculous doing that, but you kind of have to. A lot of the growers you have to warm up the soil. I just wanted to get some dark areas in there so the sun could, go to work and heat up the soil, because we were planting 3 weeks from that point right there in the pumpkin patch. So I actually tweeted this out and I put it on Facebook as well, and everybody thought it was an April Fool's joke, and I forgot it was April Fool's Day. No, I'm serious. This is serious, guys. This is what we're doing. So that was April 1st. This is how the pumpkin patch looks like in our backyard. On May 1st, we started them in cold frames, my neighbor made a nice little pumpkin patch sign, so that pops up periodically. We have a few cold frames in the back. So we start 4 plants, and we usually hope to get 2 or 3 pumpkins, because you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes the pumpkins will rot, or you have splits or something. And this year we ended up we lost one of 3. And not because it was a bad pumpkin or it rotted. The pumpkin was sterile. The plant was sterile, meaning it didn't produce any male pollen, which I've never seen before, but it happens periodically. So every small pumpkin that came out aborted and it just didn't have any pollen, and I guess it's just a bad plant, so I pulled the whole plant in July. So June 1st now, we're getting into summer now. We were talking about June started off kind of cool, right? Yeah. Well, it helped to have these little hoop houses. We're starting to get some big leaves. We have our little heater on the left-hand side in there. We're a little obsessive trying to keep these things warm at night. There are heating cables in the soil as well. And notice the difference between June 1st and July 1st. The plant really starts to expand. And you really need a lot of room to grow these things. Pumpkin plants typically take up about 900 to 1,000 square feet per plant. So it helps to have a large area. And notice how all those vines get buried as well. So I ended up doing most of my work when I get home from work, which is kind of strange. I always have to tell my neighbors that, because I get home from work around midnight. So I'll go out there with my headlamp and I'll be on my hands and knees. But it's really a peaceful time to be outside gardening. I did it out of necessity a few years ago, and I found myself saying, okay, I enjoy doing this, especially on full moon nights. It's great. And every now and then there'll be a deer or a buck. You ever hear the bucks when they snort sometimes when they feel danger? That scares the heck out of me. Sometimes they'll be right on the field there, and you hear them snorting. And my dog's barking at them and everything. That's a whole different story. So this was August 1st now. We're starting to see something. I put a little tent right there. That was our eventually 1302 that grew. And this was August 3rd. Oh my goodness. Yes, August 3rd. We had severe thunderstorms. August 3rd. I'll always remember this day. So I was feeling really good about this pumpkin season, and then we had terrible hail. This was on our hail tracker. We were having half-dollar-sized hail occurring, and I live right about there. So this was the pumpkin patch. This was later on that day, on August 3rd. We had a big hailstorm. Any leaves that did survive looked like Swiss cheese, but most leaves died. They blew over. So it took me about 2 days to get over it. I was a little grumpy for a few days, but it was fine. You just have to. Bill Clark, I don't know if anyone knows Bill Clark in town here, but he says, you just have to step back and say, it's only a pumpkin. And I said, yeah, you're right, because it's only a pumpkin. So what we ended up doing was, luckily I did not pinch off a lot of the ends of the vines. The vines would grow a foot a day. So what I did is I turned the vines back and I pointed them towards the dead area. You can kind of see some of the dead areas still. I'm going to try this. Hold on. No, it's not going to work. All right. I'm still learning the technology. But you see how the dead areas back there, just pointed the vines back. And it grew a lot of new leaves, and it makes me wonder what the pumpkin could have been if if it didn't have a hailstorm. But you see it had a lot of leaves in it, a lot of nice green leaves. And this was just a few weeks ago before the frost we had 2 Saturdays ago. This is my youngest daughter, Maris. And she's about 4 years old. Yeah, thank you. She doesn't know this is normal. Hey honey, go take a picture in front of the pumpkin. That's it. This is first day of school, so we do school pictures in front of the pumpkin now. So that's how that came out. Then we had a frost, and I cleaned it out, and this was just before Pumpkin Fest last weekend. I rototilled it in, tried to get a cover crop going, and that's where we are. Actually, I just brought that small one over to Pinkham's this morning. So that's it. So that's our pumpkin story for 2015. Based on that measurements, I was expecting it to weigh around 1,095 pounds. And I was very fortunate that it was very dense and had thicker walls than I anticipated. It ended up being 1,302.5 pounds. So I was surprised when I got on the scale. You see I have a big smile on my face because I was not expecting it to be that heavy. So that was fun. And we were hoping that it would become a boat, but I think Bill's going to use it as a decoration this year instead. So that's my Pumpkin Fest story. This was Edwin Pierpont. He set the bar a little higher now. We always, my goal has always been to try to nudge that state record. It's starting to get a little out of reach, I think, at least for me. 2 years ago, the state record was 1,471 pounds. And I always said, I think I could reach that value if I try hard enough. And now I think it's getting closer to 2,000. I don't know how that's going to go. But he lucked out with this one too. I mean, it was measuring 1,595 based on its measurements. And you know, we knew it was going to be heavy. If you walked up to it and thumped that pumpkin, if you have a chance to do that even at Pumpkin Fest this week, go check it out. It's about the ugliest, thickest walled pumpkin you've ever seen. But it was heavy. And everyone works hard in this patch, and he did a really nice job on that one. So I want to talk a little bit about the growing conditions and about what the weather is like here in Maine and the unique weather that you get in Mid-Coast Maine here. These are this comes from a book from my friend Greg Zielinski. He was the state climatologist in UMaine Orono for a few years, but they're not real flashy graphics or anything like that. But you get the general idea. What you're looking at is average annual temperature for the state of Maine. And you can clearly see that most of our area from Mid-Coast Maine south is the warmest in the state. There's a little sliver, the warmest sliver runs about 46 degrees from interior York County to Sebago Lake, right here, right up to about Lewiston. And that's actually where I grow, but we get some really, really warm temperatures in summer, but we also get really quick frosts and freezes in the fall. So we had a freeze 2 weeks ago, and it's great to see, you know, down at Pinkham's plantation here, it's got great buzz, still has nice green leaves going. Average annual precipitation, you folks get some of the higher rainfall totals in the state. In this general area, it's in the 50s, about 52 or so. What is it? Actually, south of Penobscot Bay, right around 50, I guess, inches of rain and melted snow per year. This one doesn't have. I loaded this one. Oh, this is one I wanted to show you here. This is the average last frost date. In Portland, the average last frost date is October 5th. That's the average, first frost date, I'm sorry. First frost date. I'm already thinking of growing season next year. But first frost date is October 5th or so, somewhere in there. So you see Portland, between 1st and the 10th right here. But in your general area, it's closer to Halloween. It's October 21st to 31st. And the reason for that is you get the moderating effects of the ocean. One of the trivia questions I like to give the kids when they go into the schools is, we'll talk a little bit about how the ocean affects the weather and everything. And one of the questions I say there are 2 states in the United States that have never recorded a temperature over 100 degrees in record history. And I ask them what they are. And they usually guess Alaska right away. Alaska's one of them. But the other state, and I'd let them think about it for a while, the other state that they never get is Hawaii. Hawaii has never recorded a temperature over 100 degrees. And it's just because of the moderating effects of the ocean. The ocean keeps them generally around 80 degrees all year long. And you kind of see that going on here a little bit. It's not Hawaii, but you do kind of see in the wintertime, you know, you get more of a rain-snow line. You probably even see it on the peninsulas. You go down the peninsula, it's raining. You go farther up, it's snowing. And in between there's a little level of sleet, which makes our job exceptionally difficult for this area. But in summertime, especially in spring, Freiburg could be 85 degrees, and you could see Rockland and Wiscasset at 50-something degrees, and it's just because of the water temperature. You get a stiff south wind that comes in off the ocean, and then you're socked in the fog more than other parts of the state. But it makes for such a unique microclimate. I think everything's more lush here. You get, like I said, the later frost dates and everything. So it's a good place to grow things. Anyway, the later frost date, and I think longer growing season helps out a lot. If you can get out of the fog, that's usually a pretty good thing. So this is brand new over the last 2 years. The brand new plant hardiness zoner map has come out, and I've used this from the USDA. I use this periodically in my What's Growing segment that they do sometimes at Channel 13. And you can see that we are in a 6A here. There's two areas of 6A, the green, in the state of Maine, and it's basically this area right up through the river, up to about Damascotta, some of the peninsulas that take you over to Rockland, and farther down, not quite to Harpswell, but southern York County is in that as well. So I just think that you guys can grow plants that other parts of the state can't. So this is your brand new plant hardiness map that came out just a year and a half ago. So we are now in 6A in this area. It's global warming, I guess. We're not going to get into that. Two things. It's funny, but growing up, you don't talk about religion or politics in company, right? Yeah. And now it's religion, politics, and global warming. You don't talk about that. You're very passionate about it. Okay, all right. So that's a little bit about the unique area we live in for growing plants and things like that, and how our weather works. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the unique weather we get in our area. One of the other trivia questions I like to give to our kids at school will be, I'll say, where in the world can you go? And I actually show a globe. I say, where in the world can you go where in summertime the temperature can get up to 100 degrees? And they say, oh, that's warm. And this same place can get down to 0 in winter. This same place could get a blizzard, a tornado, and a hurricane. So they're all perplexed at this point, and they usually raise their hands. Someone says Texas, Alaska, China, but the thing that they don't think about, and I don't expect them to, is the answer I'm looking for is right here in Maine, or New England in general. We live in such a unique and cool place, weather-wise. We get 4 distinct seasons, 5 if you want to count mud season a season. But we live in such a cool place that we, just when you get sick of one kind of weather, there's always something coming around the corner. And for meteorologists, that is very challenging. It's exciting. I don't know how meteorologists in San Diego handle it. I think, I mean, there were a few periods of summer where it was like 80 degrees of summer every day, it's sunny every day. And I was just out of my mind. Like, what am I going to talk about tonight? Please somebody send me a viewer photo or something. They're going to give me 3 minutes and 30 seconds to talk about the weather regardless. But luckily for meteorologists, there's usually something interesting to talk about. And I'm passionate about weather. I really enjoy it, and this is a great place to live and work for if you're a meteorologist and love weather. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Channel 13, we have our tower, our transmitter tower, which is in Raymond, Maine, right here at Sebago Lake. This is the tower right here. You can barely see it. There's some red lights on it, and we captured a lightning strike on that. That was our chief engineer, Craig Clark, that snapped that photo there. A little tidbit for you, in the late 1950s, it was the tallest man-made structure on the planet. The Channel 13 tower, yeah. Yeah, how about that? It was like 1,600 and something feet. Tallest man-made structure on the planet. There we go. We don't get a ton of hurricanes. We average about a hurricane or a tropical storm in New England once every 10 years. We haven't had one make landfall since August 19th, 1991. So, we're overdue. This is the first time we thought, okay, we might get a tropical storm coming up the coast. This is when we started to realize, okay, we're getting close here. This was Irene a few years ago. We really didn't get a lot of wind. Portland had a peak wind gust of about 50 miles an hour, 53 miles per hour. Well, when you get that leaves on the trees, I mean, that's a whole different story. When you have leaves on the trees, the leaves will act as sails and you get more power outages. And there were a bunch of power outages associated with that. But the big threat with Irene, which was a tropical storm when it made landfall, was the flooding. And typically the heaviest rains in a tropical system are on the west side of the storm. The strongest winds on the east side of the storm. So as the storm's coming up the coast, the right side of the storm, strongest winds. So on the left side of the storm, heaviest rains. So you always see like some of the bigger storms, like the last time we had a major hurricane make landfall in New England, Hurricane Carol in 1954. That one went just west of us, and that put us on the east side of the storm, which is why we had really strong winds in that storm. And 2 weeks later, we had Hurricane Edna. Does anybody remember 1954? Oh my goodness, I wish I was here for that one. People would be out of their minds. Imagine if we had 2 hurricanes in 1 year, 1 summer. People, oh my goodness, people think the world's come to an end. But it's going to happen again. And you know, it's going to be crazy when it does, but it's going to happen. All right, so this was, if you're familiar with New Hampshire, this is actually just outside of Loon Mountain. If you ever skied at Loon Mountain before, the west branch of the Pemigewasset River runs right up front, and I think they actually make snow using some of that water from the river. And on the left-hand side of the screen right there is a little bridge. About an hour later, that bridge washed away. And the temporary bridge is still there. So, but they have a bridge. You can go skiing at Loon Mountain these days. This was a really interesting day for me. This is July 21st, 2010. This is the first kind of big tornado outbreak we had in Maine since I've been working in Maine. And we had 3 tornadoes touch down that day. Luckily in Maine we get these quick little spin-up tornadoes, and they're mostly along warm front, which is kind of surprising. You think about out west, the strong cold fronts, those are the ones that produce the bigger tornadoes. But we usually get just enough spin in the atmosphere in a lot of these warm fronts, that strong warm fronts, that you can see these weak spin-up tornadoes that get going. And this is the case on July 21st, 2010. I'll always remember this because this is the first time in my career, based on the radar, I was convinced that there was a tornado on the ground. Sometimes you look at the radar and you say, okay, yeah, there might be a tornado, or we're starting to see rotation, but this time it was like, wow, I'd be shocked if there's not a tornado on the ground. And we took it pretty seriously too. There was a barn that flew over, some animals died. Luckily no one was almost killed or anything, but that was the biggest tornado, and that one was in Gorham, Maine. And you can kind of see a few of the areas I highlighted. See the little hook right there? There's 2 little hooks, little appendages. That's the reflectivity radar. You can also see the radar velocities, which usually you can kind of see the winds moving toward and away from the radar. That's something I usually wouldn't use on the air, but it's a great tool in determining if there's rotation within a supercell thunderstorm. So this was one of the hooks that was coming across, I think this was in Gorham right there. If you see that in the radar, usually take cover. or at least don't go outside and start snapping pictures. It's pretty rare that we get tornadoes in Maine, but we do get average about 2 a year in the state of Maine. We're heavily wooded, so we don't really see a lot of them. This is one that we did see with iPhones now. It's great. Everybody has a picture. Even when I started 10 years ago in Portland, 11 years ago now, you would get a tornado warning, and you said, okay, if you're in this area, go to your basement, and we run through the whole thing. And maybe 3 hours later, somebody might send me a picture, an email, and say, hey, I think I got a funnel cloud picture for you. Now it's crazy because during the tornado warning, people will be sending you pictures. It's like, no, this is the exact opposite of what I told you to do. Not go outside and take pictures of the tornado, go to your basement. But everybody has a phone, everybody's snapping pictures now, and it's a curse and a blessing. It's one of those things where you get these great photos, but please don't go outside. So So this was a day on June 1st, 2011. This is the one up in Bryant Pond. So this is a funnel cloud that came down and actually touched down on one side of the lake and brought some tree branches, large tree branches, to the other side of the lake. And I like that picture. It just looks kind of neat, doesn't it? You can see the funnel. So a funnel cloud is basically the tornado dropping down out of the cloud, and then when it touches the ground, it becomes a tornado. When it stays in the air, it's the funnel cloud. And we get a lot of funnel clouds. We get a lot of pictures of them anyway. This is from Cumberland County deputies dash cam video. And check this out. This is really neat because on this particular day, this is the same July 21st day, he drove right into the rain-wrapped tornado. Look at the trees on the right-hand side of the screen. Look at the wires. Yeah. Yeah. The trees are just ripping right there. And that's all the leaves coming off the trees, of course. Look at the trees on the right. So it had just passed, I think, right about in here. You kind of see as he gets closer, there's some trees down blocking the road. That's why the cars had all pulled over. But that was the tornado first touchdown in West Buxton. Oh, my pumpkin patch was destroyed that day too. Yeah, but we didn't get a tornado, but we got some surprises.
4 or 5 comment.
Yeah, he turned the volume on at the very end. So I thought that was kind of a neat video. One of the things I like to talk about with the kids too sometimes is not only do we get this kind of unique weather, but we also get blizzards. We've had 2 of them over the last 2 years. 3 years now, I guess, if we get into 2016 this year. This video isn't loading, but it was the February 8th and 9th. That was the first blizzard we had in quite some time. Portland got 32 inches of snow out of that one. One of the things I always like to tell folks is, it's not always that serious. And, a lot of times, like tornadoes and blizzards are, you have to be really serious when you're on the air because it's life-threatening at times. But when it's hot out, I like to have fun with the viewers sometimes. So I knew it was going to be about 103 this day. It was the hottest temperature we had in a long, long time. So this is another day my wife thought I was kind of nuts, but I went. We have chickens in the backyard. I went to the chicken coop, and grabbed an egg, and said, "I'm going to fry an egg in your car." And she said, and she said, "No, you're not." So she made me use a pan, but it worked. So I fried an egg in the car. We put a potholder down so it didn't scratch or whatever. I can't remember the date of this, but it worked, and my daughter and I ate the egg, and it was great. We cooked brownies on the dashboard as well. Yeah, I think I used that video on television that night. I said, "Wow, it was so hot today." We made fried eggs on the car and we cooked brownies in the dashboard. And that was good. That was also a good explainer, why not to leave people or dogs and pets in the car. If you do decide to cook brownies in your car, I would recommend, if they're a little gooey still, I would recommend cookies. We've also tried chocolate chip cookies, and they work better than brownies. So cookies work good. The flooding is another thing we get here in Maine. You get all sorts of unique things. This was the Pemigewasset River as well. River flooding is a big thing. This is a slide I put together last night actually because somehow, for some reason, they just can't seem to get a good drainage system by Whole Foods in Portland these days. In the upper left-hand corner, actually the 2 top pictures were from last Wednesday. We had about close to 6 inches of rain, which the rest of the state had as well. But Portland's drainage system is very poor, especially in the Whole Foods back cove area. And the water could not drain. We had seawater coming up through the drains as well, and people had some problems getting their cars somewhere. So we had a lot of rain in a very short period of time, but I think a lot of it is due to the poor drainage of Portland, because the rest of the area had just as much rain as well. The lower part of your screen right there, I didn't get a chance to label it all. That was August 13th, 2014, and that was a training thunderstorm that we we had, and when I say training, what happened was the storms, you know, thunderstorms sometimes go from west to east, and then boom, you get a thunderstorm and it's gone, right? It's great. This day, we had thunderstorms that kept replacing the previous thunderstorm. So we call them like a train. They were set up like a train track, so you had thunderstorm, 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 and it was just raining and pouring. And this day in particular, they're very localized. We had 6 inches of rain, 6.28 in fact, in just a few hours. And that was the scene down by the Hood plant in Portland where, you know, that was the first time I was recognizing on air. I was like, okay, you know, hey guys, I think we need to blow out the rest of the newscast and just focus on weather here because there are cars floating away. And that worked out really well. I'm glad we made that decision because it was a big thing. Because you know, I've been in a few of those situations where you're in a situation, you're saying, okay, this is some pretty bad weather, but it's doable. We can handle this. And then all of a sudden it escalates, and then it becomes a big thing or a life-threatening thing. You say, okay, we have to blow everything out. And usually my news director is very understanding in that kind of situation. What I don't like is when we do coverage for like 2 inches of snow. I don't like that at all, but we're going to do it again this year. The news stations love to do it for some reason. So we do get a lot of unique weather around here. So this is how we pretty much put it together in a broadcast form. This is our studio, and we make it look a lot better on TV than it actually is. We don't show everyone the lights that are hanging from the ceiling. Actually, our studio is an old shopping center in Portland. We actually share a building with the L. Bean call center, so if you go order some L. Bean boots and call up, it's usually, you know, it's probably about 50 feet away from my weather desk right there where they're answering the phone. But it's great having neighbors like L. Bean, though. The parking lot's always plowed really well, and they're nice neighbors to have. So we do actually weather from a green screen you see right there.
From what?
A green screen, a green chroma screen. So it's this thing right here. That's where we do the weather. There's no weather map behind me. And a lot of folks will say, how do you point? Well, there's actually 2 monitors. There's one right here, one over here, and I'll actually show you how that works. Let's see if we can get this thing to go. Oh, no, not this one. Yeah. Here we go. It's gonna work. This is a little behind the scenes look.
Well, it's 2:30. It's time to head into work. It's been raining all morning. I've sunshined the forecast for the weekend. We have a lot to talk.
Actually, hold tight. This one is the one I wanted. This is it. This one just looks cool.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti. Living here in Maine, we get some beautiful weather no matter what point of the season, but the weather isn't always as beautiful.
Yeah, that's true, Charlie. I'm meteorologist Craig Miller. You know, we have that nice weather, but we also sometimes see a lot of snowstorms, blizzards, ice storms, even floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes, and the occasional earthquake, too.
And that's why it's so important to keep track of the weather. Right here we have our arsenal of computers, and that helps us keep track of all the severe weather we see summer, winter, fall, and spring.
So this space that you see here is not only what we use on air, but this is actually our workspace too. This is where we analyze all the radar and satellite data, and then all the computer forecast model predictions as well.
And our job is to take that information, put it into an accurate forecast, and when the weather does turn severe, it's our job to let you know what to expect and take action if necessary.
And you know, that forecast that you see on air is actually just a small piece of what we do. Most of our shift is spent analyzing data and coming up with a forecast. You know, there's actually a lot that goes on behind the scenes that most people don't even get to see.
It's so true, Craig. It's time to actually get ready for the newscast, so why don't you give folks a tour of the studio?
Oh, that's a great idea because there's really a lot that goes on. Really neat to see. Well, here's our studio. As you can see, it's a pretty big space here. All these monitors, the lights, the cameras that are here, these are all used every day by all our newscasts. And of course, this is the main news desk right here. This is where all the news anchors sit for all the various programs that we put together. And so as we go around the studio over here, we're back to the Weather Center again. You can see Charlie busy at one of the computers getting ready for the newscast that's coming up. And then over here in this corner, this is our green screen wall, or the chroma key wall. This is actually where we do the forecast each and every night on the news. Now, I'm going to show you how that works coming up in just a minute. But I think Greg and Kim are just coming into the studio for the newscast right now.
This is CBS 13 News, Live at 5.
Fire breaks out in a barn, spreads to a home in Bridgeton, causing heavy damage, and it can be seen for miles around.
You see the smoke there. It happened this afternoon off of Route 107 with police blocking.
All right, well, the newscast has started in there, so I actually want to continue our behind-the-scenes tour. We're going to go into the control room where all the action's happening right now.
2 lights out, right? I saw in the back of the building, in the barn, the flames come shooting out.
So during the newscast, the control room is a hub of activity. This is actually where all the producers and directors sit. They'll control what cameras are used, what videos are shown, and how the whole newscast plays out.
The screening really has been popular, but some residents in this area wish their screens would get a little more attention. Now, with each storm, city crews have to plow more than 5.
As you might imagine, all this activity takes a lot of computers to run. Take a look at this room here. This room is full of computers. This is all that is needed to keep our station running and on air. Let's actually head back into the studio. I think Charlie's getting ready to do his forecast. And remember that green screen technology I was talking about before? I actually want to show you how this works.
And now, your CBS 13 Weather Authority forecast.
After 3 days of continuous snow, it's nice to get some sunshine to return today, and air temps made it to around 30 degrees. That's the warmest it's been in several days. I can't say the same for tomorrow.
Notice how he stands in front of the green screen wall, and then he needs to look at the monitors on the side. That's how he sees what he's looking at and what he's pointing at. Let me show you what this looks like on air.
Setting after 5 o'clock now, I can show you a live look now from our RAYMOND sky cam. It's a little blurry, but looking off to the west there, we have still a little bit of daylight trying to hang on. So at least it's getting brighter later in the day. At least with that going for us. Air temps are in the 20s, many towns.
So whatever is green, the computer will actually replace with whatever image we want. Now, in this case, we're using the weather graphics, but we could actually put anything back there. We could pretend like he was on the beach, the top of Mount Washington, or even on the moon. Movie companies actually use this kind of technology all the time.
The clouds were the slowest to move out along coastal areas today. Down in Portsmouth, notice those clouds ever so slowly moving offshore.
We're actually in a commercial break right now, so we're going to head over here. So Charlie, that was great. Thanks for showing us how we do that part of our forecast.
No problem. Glad you liked it. How did the tour go?
It was great. We got to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff. There's a lot that goes into it.
And now you know what it takes to make a forecast that helps us keep you informed. After all, that's why we're here.
That's right. So we'll see you on the news.
So that was a little thing we put together just to kind of show folks a little behind the scenes look at what we do. And when we put that together, it kind of reminded me of like, you ever watch This Old House? But now we're gonna go up to Norm. Tom's upstairs installing the new light fixture. I don't know, but it was kind of fun to do that. It's a little outside of my comfort level there, but it was fun. So yeah, that's basically how we put it together. I still know very little about news broadcasting. I was looking at the control room stuff, and that just makes me nervous looking at that. I don't know how they put that stuff together. But as far as like the TV thing goes, that's something I learned later in the game, how to use the green screen. It's kind of like riding a bike. You know, we all kind of learn with training wheels at first. It's like looking into a mirror except backwards. And after a while, you know, when you ride a bike, next thing you know, hey mom, look at me, no hands. You kind of figure out where Damerscott is, where Newcastle, Edgecombe, Bristol, all those areas are just by moving your hands. So that's basically how that works. I know I'm kind of running short in time here, aren't I? We'd be about 10:45. I was going to talk a little bit about some of the more recent, some of the storms we've had over the years. If we had maybe another 5 minutes, I think.
Sure.
We go a little bit longer? Or is that cool, guys?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any quick questions about behind the scenes stuff?
You have no teleprompter with the text?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Okay, yeah. So the question was, do we have teleprompter? All right. So when the anchor's doing the newscast, all of their news stories are written. So they're reading a teleprompter, which is basically a bunch of words that kind of come up in the camera. The nice thing about doing weather is we don't have to read anything. So we can just talk up the top of our heads, which at first you think, okay, that's, I prefer to read, but for me anyway, I sound like a first grader when I'm reading teleprompter. The cat ran, or it just sounds really bad. So it's just like anything else. If you know your story, if you know what your story is, it's kind of easy to talk about it. Of course, I say that because I screw it up on a nightly basis sometimes. Because I'm trying to do something, I'm trying to draw a line or something, and I screw that up. But it's live TV, so you just have to say, okay, well, that was a bad cold front, let's do it again. And you might be wondering how I draw those lines, or how I pick, in the video I was picking the sky cams. It's really neat technology. So we received this technology several years ago where the camera picks up on the point that's farthest away from my body. So it actually my body becomes like a glorified mouse, believe it or not, like a computer mouse. And so usually it's my finger. The funny thing sometimes where we screw it up is when I bring my arm in, all of a sudden my elbow becomes that point. So like I'm drawing a line, my elbow, or sometimes if I'm too far up, my nose becomes that point. So I've actually been able to pick, sometimes I have fun with the Cubscope groups and stuff. I can pick my temperatures with my nose. So I just put my nose up, and the temperature in Wisconsin is, and I was hitting the button. So, and the kids like it because it's like a video game. All the kids love video games. So I have 4 buttons on my controller, and it's basically like a glorified garage door opener. And I can toggle between 2 computers, and it just takes a little while to learn, but you figure it out after a while.
How does Fox enter into this?
How does Fox get into this?
Yeah.
Great question. So several years ago, we won the contract to do news on Fox. That was probably 2007, I think. So I work for CBS 13, Channel 13. We're owned by a company called Sinclair Broadcast. I remember they said, we're going to add a 10 o'clock newscast. And that sounds great. It's more responsibility. But it's in this day and age, I think that's where news is going. It won't be 3 stations down the road. I mean, we're all doing the same thing. Channel 6, Channel 13, Channel 8, we're all doing the same, similar things anyway. Everybody has their preferences, but I think the future of broadcast television is going to be different than what it is right now. Just because, it's funny. It's like, everyone's like, how do you get your forecast? Well, I look at my iPhone, or so it's morphing into something different. So, all right, I'm getting off topic, but so in 2000, so just more recently, within, let's see, it's probably about three or 4 years ago. We bought Fox. So we own Fox and CBS, and we do both stations from our studio right there. They have slightly different color backgrounds, they have different formats too, which is kind of cool. We do a new 6:30 broadcast, which is more like a morning format. At first I was a little resistant to it because I'm used to there being 3 minutes and 30 seconds of weather. And that's a traditional weathercast. I can do my current conditions, here's what's happening, here's where we're going, I can kind of show whatever I want to show that's unique to that day. My news director came to me, she says, all right, you're going to do 5 45-second weather hits. So now it's broken down where I'm showing, I can show the current conditions, give a little bit about what's going to happen tomorrow. Okay, now we're going to talk about the next 3 days of my next hit. Final hit's just nothing but viewer photos, and so it's everything has a different format, and I don't pretend to guess or know what works and what doesn't, but that's it.
Does your news director put you under any pressure to lend drama or showmanship to the weather? We tend to hear that there's moving into the weather presentation on various channels can actually put a little more razzmatazz in than the weather might call for.
I don't feel any pressure to embellish anything in the weather forecast, which is great. My news director she's very level-headed. She has a good, she's very good at what she does. She knows, if weather's a big story that day, she knows that we're going to lead with weather, and that hasn't always been the case in some of the stations I've worked at, where weather gets buried behind things. But where I will say you're certainly on target here is the newsroom can sometimes embellish things. And reporters, a lot of times during a storm, I'll get all the reporters together and say, hey, listen guys, this is what we have going here. Please don't. The worst thing is please do not tell people to stay indoors. Like, we have 2 inches of snow. You'll see a reporter, oh, we're urging folks to stay inside, the roads are horrible. Mainers don't want to be told to stay inside. It's 2 inches of snow. I will never tell folks to stay inside.
No.
I mean, if you get a little bit of snow, it just adds good traction, right? But there have been, I think there's probably been less than 5 times in my career I've actually told folks that please do not go out if unless necessary. 2 have been during ice storms. 1 during severe weather, I think. And I can't remember. Patriots Day nor'easter was another one. So there are times where you don't want to cry wolf. If I tell you, if I say, hey, listen, conditions are treacherous, that means they're treacherous. But during a snowstorm, usually I have a smile on my face and hope you're having fun.
Were you joking before when you said religion, politics, and global warming?
Yes, I was.
You had talked about that?
Yeah. No. Well, people are passionate on both sides. The joke was that if I bring it up, sometimes people are very passionate on both sides. That that's you can get. I've seen some pretty good arguments going in the past, but it's. I think the overall consensus, yes, we're warming. We're getting a lot of control here, but the big question is it going to go back? Is it human-induced? And people are very, very passionate on that topic. And I typically stay away from the topic. That's been my. I'm not a climatologist, so I don't pretend to know where we're going. I have my opinions, but I don't. I'm way in the back end.
How do you get the youngest reporter to put on a LL Bean parka and go down and stand on Camp Ellis in the middle of a tornado? Or
You
always get these people down there getting covered with surf.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
with their microphone out.
Yeah, they got the short end of the stick. Yeah, it's like you're going to Camp Ellis today. That's the thing. It's one of those things where so there's been a lot of research done in what viewers want to see in local news. Local news is hard. I'm on the verge of tears last night watching the newscast. It was horrible. I mean, these poor people that didn't make it in the boat, and then the poor child poor child passed away from E. coli. It's like, holy cow, this is really heavy stuff. And then they're like, hey, Charlie, it's time for weather. I was working in Providence during the station nightclub fire, and that was the worst time I've ever had to work. Because 100 people dead in this fire, and then well, now we're going to take a break and do weather. It's like, holy cow, that's real heavy stuff. But so there's been a lot of research done on what viewers really want to see in local news, and the fortunate thing is the overwhelming consensus is they want to see weather. They want to see local weather, not just the Weather Channel kind of weather. You won't see any national maps. Very rarely will you see a national map unless there's something that's going to affect us down the road. So the idea is to keep it local, keep it hyper local in our area, and try to keep it as you and the viewers. That these are the people that live in your area, and you're talking directly to them. So they do put a lot of emphasis on weather, and that wasn't always the case. I mean, you see a lot of, there've been a few times where I was like, okay, this is a sinking ship, this is not going to happen. When I first got into the business, it was right when the Weather Channel started. And just like, okay, well, they're now the Weather Channel, so nobody needs local news anymore. You just flip on this channel, everybody has cable now, it's great. Well, we survived that. The next one was the internet. It's like, oh, everybody's going to go to the internet now for their weather. Well, we somehow survived that, and there was a little down period there, especially in the 1990s, where weather was not really looked upon, local weather anyway, as a thing that everybody needed. And then my next thing was, I said, okay, when my mom and dad get an iPhone, we're done, because all of a sudden, everyone's going to have an iPhone, and they'll be able to go onto that little app that says, hey, it's sunny outside. And somehow we survived that too. So there's been a big emphasis lately on weather, and more than ever, which is great. The downfall is sometimes some stations can what can I say? How should I say this politely? You can put too much emphasis on weather, I think. And then all of a sudden, our first winter weather advisory. I mean, it's a winter weather advisory. And if it's a Saturday morning, we're all going to be in there. It's a winter weather advisory, and we're going to be talking about the 1 to 3 inches of snow, and it's a little bizarre, but that's the world we live in now. And and to answer your question from before is, yeah, there's news makes a big deal about it, but from a weather standpoint, I'll just, hey, you're getting 1 to 3 inches of snow, and just leave yourself a little extra time.
Show us storms.
What's that?
Storms.
Storms, do you want to talk a little bit about storms?
Yeah.
Real quick, all right, so I'll just be kind of quick with these. So some of the bigger storms we had, this is the one that all the storms are measured, every hurricane is measured by the 1930 hurricane, the Long Island Express. That storm, I can't even imagine being involved in that storm, because you had no idea that that storm was coming. Nobody had any idea that a storm was coming. There were two weather office bureaus at the time. One was in Florida, the other one was in Washington, D.C. The official forecast was for the storm to go out to sea like all the other storms had done previous that year, and the year before, and the year before that. The difference with this one is it was barreling at 40 miles an hour up the eastern seaboard. That's why they call it the Long Island Express. It was cranking away. It was coming up, and